At 65, Madonna is no longer playing by Hollywood's rules. The queen of pop, once untouchable, adored, and feared, now steps into the light with a confession she's kept buried for decades. 5 names, 5 people who, in her words, tried to erase me, to burn my name out of history, but I survived. She doesn't whisper it. She spits it like a curse, her voice steady but eyes burning with memories that refuse to fade. These aren't petty feuds or tabloid rumors. These are the betrayals that cut deep, the backroom deals meant to end her career, the media campaigns designed to shame her into silence, the friends who turned on her when she needed them most. For years, she smiled through the lies, reinvented herself to stay ahead, and played the game better than anyone else. But now, there's no game, only truth. If I stayed quiet, they would have won, she says, and I don't lose. Tonight, we open the vault on Madonna's most dangerous enemies, the actors, producers, and insiders who tried to destroy her and failed. Madonna Louise Ciccone was born on the 16th of August, 1958, in Bay City, Michigan, the third of 6 children in a strict Italian Catholic household. Her mother's death when Madonna was just 5 years old left a wound that never truly healed, a wound she would later pour into her art. Growing up, she was the restless one, the girl who refused to sit still, who learned early that the only way to be heard in a noisy world was to be louder than everyone else. By her late teens, she had left the Midwest behind, arriving in New York City in 1978 with just $35 in her pocket and a burning certainty that she was meant for something bigger. The city was unforgiving. She waited tables, posed for art classes, and slept on friends' couches, but she soaked up every ounce of the underground scene. Punk clubs, disco halls, gritty rehearsal spaces, all of it became her training ground. Her break came in 1983 with the release of her self-titled debut album, a fusion of pop hooks and dance beats that caught fire in clubs across America. By the mid-1982nd, Madonna was no longer just a pop star, she was a cultural force. Like a Virgin, Material Girl, and Papa Don't Preach weren't just songs, they were statements. She challenged religion, gender roles, and sexual norms, igniting outrage and adoration in equal measure. But with fame came enemies. The industry's power brokers weren't used to women who refused to be controlled. She was too sexual, too outspoken, too unwilling to play nice. And while the world saw the glamour, behind the scenes, she was already learning a harsh truth. In the business of fame, success makes you a target. His name was Camille Barbone, a music manager who, in the early 1982nd, claimed to see something special in the ambitious young singer from Michigan. She was raw, fearless, and willing to work harder than anyone else. Barbone offered her guidance, industry connections, and a promise: stick with me, and I'll make you a star. For a while, Madonna believed her. Under Barbone's management, Madonna recorded demos, played small gigs, and began to shape her image. But what she didn't see at first were the invisible chains being wrapped around her. Every career decision, every creative choice had to go through Barbone. When Madonna pushed back, insisting on more control over her sound and style, Barbone's support began to wither. The breaking point came when Madonna started attracting attention from major labels. Instead of celebrating, Barbone saw her slipping away. Behind closed doors, she began warning industry contacts that Madonna was difficult and unreliable, a liability to anyone who worked with her. I didn't understand it at first, Madonna recalls. Why would someone who claimed to believe in me try to poison my name? But the answer was clear control. If Barbone couldn't own her, she'd rather destroy her. The fallout was brutal. Promising label talks went cold. Rumors swirled that Madonna was impossible to manage. For a moment, her dreams seemed to stall before they'd even begun. But instead of retreating, Madonna doubled down, cutting ties with Barbone and finding a new path, one that would eventually lead her to global domination. Still, the sting never faded. She taught me something, Madonna says. Your first betrayal is the one that teaches you how to fight. In the early 1992nd, Madonna was at the height of her fame. Blonde Ambition was breaking records. Vogue was everywhere, and she had become the most talked about woman in music. But behind the spectacle, a silent war was brewing, with someone she once considered an ally, Warren Beatty. They met on the set of Dick Tracy in 1989. At first, their relationship was electric, two magnetic personalities colliding in a whirlwind of charm, wit, and ambition. Madonna admired his legendary Hollywood status, and Beatty seemed fascinated by her audacity. But as their romance cooled, the dynamic shifted. According to Madonna, Beatty began to subtly undermine her. During interviews, he'd make sly comments about her being more interested in fame than art. In private, he'd dismiss her creative choices as cheap or provocative for the sake of it. And when Truth or Dare, her groundbreaking documentary, was released in 1991, Beatty's infamous on-camera remark, "She doesn't want to live off-camera, much less talk. There's nothing to say off-camera," felt like a dagger. The line became one of the most quoted moments from the film, used by critics to paint her as a narcissist. Madonna later admitted it wasn't just the words, it was the public betrayal from someone who knew her vulnerabilities. "He knew how hard I fought to be taken seriously," she says, "and he handed my enemies the perfect soundbite." The fallout was immediate. Media outlets replayed the clip endlessly, framing Madonna as a manufactured persona rather than a serious artist. It was exactly the kind of narrative she'd been battling against for years. She distanced herself from Beatty completely, but the scar remained. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come as a knife in the back, she reflects. Sometimes it's a smile on camera, while they twist the knife in front of the whole world. By the mid-2002, Madonna had reinvented herself yet again, moving from the electronic pulse of Ray of Light to the disco revival of Confessions on a Dance Floor. But during the creation of what she hoped would be her next major statement, Hard Candy, 2008, she crossed paths with someone who would leave a bitter taste. A high-profile producer she had admired, Timbaland. Initially, the pairing seemed like a dream. Timbaland had dominated the charts with Justin Timberlake and Nelly Furtado, and Madonna was eager to blend her pop sensibilities with his cutting-edge beats. But from the start, there were tensions. Sessions were delayed, tracks were reworked without her input, and gossip began circulating in the industry press about creative differences that, according to Madonna, were deliberately leaked. She later discovered that Timbaland had been privately telling industry contacts that Madonna was out of touch and desperate to sound young. Those words stung not just because of the personal jab, but because they echoed the ageist narrative she'd been fighting her entire career. The real betrayal came when tracks they had worked on together appeared heavily altered, with Madonna's vocals stripped back or buried in the mix. She felt sidelined in her own album, her vision compromised. In interviews, Timbaland's comments about the project were lukewarm at best, implying that the collaboration had been more of a favor than a partnership. "I've been called many things in my life," Madonna said later, "but irrelevant is the one that makes them smile the most, and I will never give them that satisfaction." While Hard Candy performed well commercially, Madonna privately considered it one of her most frustrating creative experiences. It was a reminder that even at her level, the industry's gatekeepers could and would try to steer her toward an image they controlled. If there was one battlefield Madonna knew well, it was the media. She had long understood that headlines could make or break a career. But in the mid-1992nd, she faced a betrayal that didn't come from a lover or a colleague. It came from someone she had trusted to tell her story, Piers Morgan, then a rising tabloid editor in the UK. At the time, Madonna was preparing for her bedtime stories era, eager to shift away from the explicit controversy of erotica and sex toward a more introspective image. She agreed to a rare in-depth interview on the condition that the coverage would focus on her music and personal growth. Instead, the resulting articles twisted her words into salacious headlines, dragging up old scandals and framing her as a fading provocateur clinging to relevance. Private anecdotes she had shared off the record suddenly appeared in print, accompanied by grainy paparazzi shots she suspected had been deliberately sourced to embarrass her. Madonna felt ambushed. "It's one thing when your enemies smear you," she said. "It's another when you hand someone your truth and they use it to cut you open." The damage was immediate. UK press coverage soured, and the shift rippled internationally. interviews became more guarded. Her trust in journalists eroded. The betrayal wasn't just about the lies, it was about the betrayal of access, the breach of a professional agreement she believed was ironclad. Years later, when Morgan attempted to praise her publicly, she fired back with a cutting remark in another interview. "He's the kind of man who'd sell your diary if you left it on the table." It was a lesson she never forgot. In the media, there are no friends, only people waiting for the right moment to turn your story into their profit. For decades, Madonna had been surrounded by dancers not just as performers, but as family. They were in her videos, on her tours, in her home. Among them was Christopher Ciccone, her own younger brother, a man she once called her other half. They had shared everything from childhood memories to backstage secrets. He had been her assistant, her confidant, even her interior designer. To Madonna, Christopher wasn't just blood, he was one of the few people she believed would never hurt her. That belief shattered in 2008. Without warning, Christopher announced the release of a memoir, Life with My Sister Madonna. Marketed as a tell-all, it promised intimate details of her relationships, her marriages, her career, details only someone on the inside could know. When she first heard, Madonna thought it was a joke. Then she saw the manuscript. Page after page painted her as controlling, selfish, manipulative. Private conversations, family moments, and personal struggles she had never shared with the public were suddenly laid bare. It wasn't just gossip, it was her life, reframed through the eyes of someone she had trusted since birth. "I could handle strangers lying about me," she later said. "But when it's your own blood, the knife cuts deeper." The book made headlines around the world. Talk shows dissected it, tabloids ran excerpts, and the public devoured every lurid detail. For Madonna, it wasn't about the money or the fame, it was about betrayal at the most personal level. This was the man who knew her vulnerabilities, who had been there for her triumphs and breakdowns. And now, he had weaponized that knowledge for profit. The fallout was permanent. Madonna cut all personal contact with Christopher. In interviews, she rarely mentioned him by name, referring instead to someone I used to trust. Friends say it was the first time they saw her truly broken, not by the industry, not by lovers, but by family. Years later, Christopher defended the book, claiming it was his truth. But for Madonna, there was no defense. "You can forgive a thief," she once said in a rare moment of candor, "but not someone who robs your soul." It was the betrayal that changed her forever. From that moment on, Madonna became even more guarded, building walls that not even her closest allies could easily cross. The Queen of Pop had learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes, the people who destroy you aren't strangers, they're the ones you love the most. Today, at 65, Madonna stands not as a victim, but as a survivor. The betrayals, the headlines, the whispers, they're all chapters in a story she refuses to let others finish for her. The woman once labeled too sexual, too ambitious, too controversial, has outlasted nearly everyone who tried to bury her. She speaks now with a calm that comes only from surviving the storm. "I don't tell these stories for revenge," she says. "I tell them because they're mine. And if I stay silent, I hand my life over to the people who tried to erase me." Her message isn't just for her fans, it's for anyone who has been betrayed, manipulated, or silenced. She reminds them that pain can be armor, that every wound can be a weapon in the fight to live authentically. "I forgave myself, but not them," she declares. "And if you've ever felt like me, cornered, underestimated, written off, remember this: you're not finished until you say you are." It's not the rage in her voice that lingers, but the certainty. Madonna has no interest in rewriting the past to make it prettier. She wears it, scars and all, like the sequined armor she's carried on stage for decades. And in that truth, she's still undefeated. Which of these 5 betrayals shocked you the most? Was it the first manager who tried to sabotage her before she even began? The Hollywood legend who handed her enemies the perfect soundbite? The hitmaker who buried her voice? The journalist who twisted her truth? Or the brother who sold her soul to the public? Tell us in the comments below, we read every single one. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Because in the next video, we reveal the one-woman Madonna, feared more than anyone, and how their rivalry nearly ended her career for good.